This is the Domain Magnet Show, where you'll learn everything you need to know about buying, optimizing, and selling online businesses with your host, Michael Beroslavsky.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Domain Magnet Show. On this episode, we have Zorn, who is a website investor, entrepreneur, and a yacht broker. So in this episode, we talk about brokering yachts, how that works, about buying and selling content websites, about the marketplace that Money Nomad that Zach operates. We talk about his SEO experiments, what he's learned about that. We talk about e-commerce and TikTok, and also generally entrepreneurships and different opportunities now for investors, buyers, and aspiring entrepreneurs. Tune in to listen and learn more. Hey, Zach, how's it going?
Hey, Michael, I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so it's the first time we are chatting, but I think I've heard about you before, and we've come across each other around the space, so it's nice to connect.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you for having me on. And as you know, it's kind of a small industry, so the names get shared around. So anyways, excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. Let's dive into it. So you mentioned that you broker yachts. I don't know anything about yachts, so tell me more.
So let me define yacht. So to me personally, a yacht is if you can land a helicopter on it, it's considered a yacht. I think legally it's like 36 feet is like the technical definition of a boat becoming a yacht. So when I say yacht, my bread and butter is 400,000 to about 12 to 13 million dollars in value for the boat or yachts. So you're not landing helicopters on these, but they are still very, very nice yachts. They're typically designed for, like, my niche is sport fishing. So guys that want to go catch fish all around the world, want to go tournament fishing, that's what I help them buy and sell.
Okay, that brings up so many questions right away. So you said a yacht is 30, is that 30 meters, 30 feet, or what does it mean? What is the size you need to land a helicopter on?
You got to be getting up to probably 200 feet or so. I don't know
what
that is in meters.
So that's probably like 70 or 80 meters. Is that length?
Yeah, that's like length.
That's pretty big. That's a big boat.
It is.
What would be the, like, more or less the minimum cost for such a boat?
Probably 50 million.
50 million. So in order to land a helicopter, you need a $50 million yacht.
Yeah, you could probably find some older ones for a little bit cheaper, but when you see these yachts at like Monaco or in the Bahamas that have the helicopters, that's probably the price point that they're at. And then of course they exceed from there. But I always like to tell people when I'm a yacht broker, like, they, if you ever seen Below Deck, the TV show, I preface it with, well, I sell sport fishing boats, which are still plenty valuable, but there's a distinction there. That's all.
And sport fishing, is that basically any size boat?
It's boats that are specifically for catching fish. So you kind of typically have two categories. You have a category that's like motor yacht, that's really just meant for cruising, very, very nice interior accommodations to make you comfortable for long journeys. And then you have fishing boats that still have, nice interior accommodations, but the whole back of the boat is meant for fishing. There's bait tanks and a chair that you fight the fish from and all that sort of stuff. So I focus more in that fishing segment.
Okay, and what is a typical price for a fishing boat?
I would say about $1 million. If you want a competitive sport fishing boat, you're going to spend a minimum $1 million. And then I have clients that spend up to 12, 13, 14 million. But $1 million gets you a really nice boat. 3 million is an extremely pedigree boat.
All right, very cool. Do you have a boat of your own?
I do, but mine's only 23 feet. And the problem is I know too much and have seen too much with boat ownership that I stay away from owning a big boat. So my 23-foot boat is perfectly fine with me. It's easy to maintain. I don't have to worry about it.
So a big boat, how many, the one that helicopter lands on, how many people do you need to run it? Can just one person operate it?
No, most definitely not. So if you're talking that 200-foot mark, you probably have a main captain, of course, a backup captain or two. Then you have engineers, deckhands, and then stewards, stewardesses that are in the interior. So you're probably anywhere from 6 to 8 people, like employees that the owner has to employ to run that boat. The boats that I sell, when you start getting about 60 feet, most of my clients have a captain on full-time salary, and they usually have a deckhand as well. And then sometimes they'll hire a third guy. So my boats are 1 to 3 crew members.
Okay, so what's the biggest, the most expensive one you've brokered?
I'm working on two right now. One is a $10 million. It's probably gonna be more than that because we're building it, and then trying to put together a deal for 13 million right now. And then have done others that are in the 8 million range and things like that.
Very cool. So do you have some oligarchs among your customers?
No, I do not. I do not. Most of my customers are just hardworking entrepreneurs. They're
Okay.
mostly 50 to 60 years old that have worked their entire lives and are now ready to like enjoy the fruits of their labor.
So
Um,
the movies taught me that the yachts are mostly owned by Russian oligarchs.
I think the big ones are like oil money, and then Russian oligarch
Yeah.
as well. That's not my clientele. I haven't got to that league yet.
The Saudi royal
Uh,
family, like 100,000
uh-huh.
people or so.
Yeah, those people own some really those like the Dill Bar. If you look that up, that is a massive mega yacht. Um,
How
but
big is a mega yacht, by the way? What's the length?
you know what? So there's here a
Like
mega yacht.
like the
You
the
know what? I
the
don't
most
know off the top of
famous
my head.
ones.
So there's mega yachts and there's super yachts. I think it goes mega yacht is smaller and then super yacht's larger. And they have it defined like what that length is. I don't know off the top of my
Okay,
head.
so like the largest yacht in the world, how long would you say this roughly?
The Dill Bar, which I think is one of the biggest, that is, ooh, you're putting me on the spot here, 157 meters.
Okay,
So that
157, probably like
meters to
500 feet.
feet, 515 feet.
Okay,
That's massive.
very cool. And how long does it um the naval ships that allow planes to take off and land, how long are they? Just to give us an idea.
Um, Probably 1,500. But again, another quick
Feet.
Google search. Uh, 1,100 feet or so.
All right. All right, very
Uh,
interesting.
yeah. So you know what? It's not that much. Yeah, it's half the size of an aircraft carrier.
All right.
But
All right,
what's
very
funny is one's
interesting.
owned by a government and one's owned by a single person.
So what
Uh,
is the typical commission for brokering in a yacht?
so it's this industry standard is 10%
That's nice.
of the final sales price. However, like I don't get that full 10%, right? Or neither would you. If say there's it's much like real estate, if I'm representing the buyer and someone else is representing the seller, that 10% gets split between both entities.
Okay.
So the buy side gets 5%, the sell side gets 5%. And then that gets split up between the sales guy and stuff like that. But to answer your question, overall it's a 10% commission.
Okay, and can you talk briefly about the process? I'm curious how it compares to brokering online businesses, because you have
Yeah.
experience in that as well, and what the time frames are.
You know what? It's very, very similar. And that's what got me into brokering online businesses was my yacht brokerage experience. So say you came to me and you saw one of the yachts that I have for sale and you wanted to buy it. First step is I bring you down, I show you the boat. You go through it and you're like, okay, this is for me. Let's write up an offer. So we write up an offer, we get it accepted. I typically set my contracts to be 28 days in length from start to finish. And that's like the due diligence period, right? So in that time, I schedule a boat survey, which is an inspection, a mechanical inspection of the engines and transmissions. And then we also pull the boat out of the water to check what you can't see when it's in the water. So like the propellers and all the fiberglass underneath. Typically, all those inspections happen on the same day or two, just because all the inspectors are there. And then we even take oil samples. Like we'll pull engine oil out of the engines and send that off to a laboratory so they can see what that oil looks like. And then you get all of the findings, and you as the buyer can determine, hey, do I want to renegotiate? Do I want to buy it as is, or do I want to back out? In all my years of doing it, I'm going on 7 years, I've only have lost one deal after inspections. The rest are either renegotiated a little bit or the buyers just take it as is. And then closing takes about 5 days, assuming there's no lender involved. If there's a lender involved, it's usually a little bit longer. But it's pretty straightforward once you have the system kind of down and you know like the steps that need to be taken.
Very interesting. So I had on episode 45, I had Eric Borgos, who bought Yachts.com.
Really?
Yeah, and he was talking about, that was about a year ago, and he was talking about how he acquired the domain and how he was planning to turn it into a yacht brokering website. And by the way, I just looked it up. It's parked, so it redirects to another yacht website. So I'm guessing it probably either did not work out or he sold it. But
hey,
it was really interesting.
Maybe I should buy it and see if I can do something with it.
Maybe you should. Maybe it's available now. I don't remember if you mentioned the price or not, but I would imagine with a domain like that, you would be getting some really good leads.
Most definitely. I saw yachts, I think, for sale. Yachts for sale was for sale a couple years ago, and I think they're asking a couple 100,000 for it.
Yeah, but like Yachts or Yacht.com, that's probably the one you would really want, right?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
And that's where like this industry and my knowledge of SEO, like they come together, right? Because if you can generate your own leads through both social and organic SEO, you're ahead of most yacht brokers that don't understand like the technical side of what you and I do.
Oh yeah, by the way, I just looked it up, and so I saw that he bought it for 350,000. He mentioned on the episode, so he paid $350,000. What do you think about that? Would you have paid like more? That was about 1 or 2 years ago. Would you have paid like that much or less or more? What do you think?
Oh, that's a pretty good buy.
Yeah.
See, the hard part is you just have to do something with it, right? Like, I think that was a great buy. I don't know if I would have paid that much for it at the time, but I think he paid a very good price for it.
So you need like one deal and maybe like 1 or 2 deals and in commissions.
That most definitely.
Okay,
plus it's a business expense. So
yeah, that was actually this was actually 1.5 years ago that he bought it. So that'd be interesting. I'll follow up with him after the episode to see what happened to it.
Yeah, please do. I'd be interested to know.
All right. So how does one actually get into becoming a yacht broker? How did you get into it?
It was kind of by accident. I was coming out of school and I got a job offer from Google. But the catch was I had to move to Michigan. I live in San Diego, California, where it's warm and sunny all year long. I like the ocean and things like that. So, but I would have had to move to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it gets way too cold there. I didn't want to relocate, so I turned it down. And then the gentleman that owns the brokerage I work for, I approached him and was like, hey, can I sell boats while I look for a job? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Come work with us. And now I'm going on 7 years, and it's become a full-time career.
Cool. So how many deals have you closed? Like, would it be like more than 10, 20?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So on average, I do about $10 to $20 million a year in total vessel value. That equates to probably 10 to 15 deals a year.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but then you compare it to the guys that work out of like say Florida, which the boat market over there is
Yeah.
so much bigger. That's just a fraction. Like their market is huge, um, compared to San Diego or Southern California. Um, but for Southern California, being a young guy, it's pretty good. Yeah.
All right, very nice. And you just do it all by yourself? Do you have some people helping you with that part of the business?
No, I do it all by myself. I have my license under a brokerage. However, we're all 1099 like subcontractors. So it's very much you go out, you get your own business, your own leads, your own marketing, which I like. I get to be an entrepreneur. Um, and it's very rewarding when you get a new customer or they refer you to somebody else. Um, but what's cool about that is you can also do trial and error. You can set up your own lead gen website if you want. You're free to do as you please.
Yeah, it seems like it would make a lot of sense if you to do some online lead gen because the leads can be so valuable. Yeah.
But and it takes a while. Just from my experience, it can take a while to cultivate these leads, right? So the first time, first touch with someone to actually them becoming a customer. I was working on a gentleman for 5 years until we bought a boat this year. So the life cycle can be very long.
So have you looked into buying a website about yachts to like a content site that you can sell, that you can use with leads?
I just haven't found a good candidate for one. I've also started, thought about starting a YouTube channel about like, come along to these like surveys I was mentioning. I thought that could be interesting. I just haven't ventured down that yet, but it's on my radar.
All right, very interesting. And so you switched, you also moved into brokering websites. How long have you been in that space?
Well, the brokerage part, probably 2 years, but this last 12 months, it really ramped up because I own it started as like an entrepreneur content website. And it's called moneynomad.com. I bought this in 2017 because I wanted to share at the time I was selling on Amazon. So I wanted to share some of that story with the world. And so I bought a website rather than building one. Fast forward to 2020 and Empire Flippers, which I'm sure you are aware of. They're a super large brokerage of online businesses. They approached me and bought a minority stake in Money Nomad. And in doing so, we cultivated a deep relationship and they learned more about me and my yacht brokerage and things. So then in 2021, they came to me and said, hey, it's not profitable really for us to brokerage deals that are $85,000 and under, but we want them to go somewhere that they can be taken care of. So they came to me and said, hey, can we send you pretty much anyone that wants to sell a business under that $80,000 mark, and can you help them out? And then that's how Money Nomad Marketplace, came to life.
They're interesting. And what kind of volumes and what sort of price ranges are you currently selling on Money Nomad?
So the cap's at 80-ish, 85. Anything above that, I either pass off to Empire Flippers if it comes directly to me, or they keep if it goes directly to them. And then I'll sell a website or a business that's only worth 5,000 if someone's willing to pay the minimum commission. But typically it's 20,000 to 80,000 in value.
And what is the commission and the minimum commission?
It's 10%. So the standard commission is 10%. The minimum is 1,500. That may have to go up in the future depending as expenses go up. But for now, 1,500 is the minimum.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. So we
Yeah.
had a few of your competitors on our podcast before. We've had, of course, Joe from Empire Flippers as well, and we had the podcast with Blake from Flip. We had I think your biggest competitor might be Motion Invest, right? Because they are in the same niche. We also had Blocks for Sale, Chelsea, and a few others. So it's quite a competitive space even for the smaller sites, right?
It is. And, I don't think Motion Invest does like KDP Kindle businesses, Amazon merch. I've ventured into those spaces as well. So I don't just do websites, I do those. Or if you have
Okay.
like a Teespring business or Teespring website or something like that, I'll do it. I'm phasing out of Amazon FBA and e-commerce brokering. I've just found there's too many moving pieces. And it makes sense if you're able to broker a $500,000 e-commerce business. That's a pretty lucrative payday commission wise. It's too much work if it's a $30,000 e-commerce business or something like that.
Yeah. And do you have a team doing that, or is it something you do yourself as well?
It's really just me. Um, and that's just because I'm able to control it and I know the experience a buyer or seller will get if I'm the one at the helm. And it hasn't gotten large enough to where I still have the time to be able to take it on and do it myself. I hope at some point I'll be able to hire somebody, but especially in this infancy of the first year or two, I think me doing everything will allow me to better outsource it in the future.
All right, very cool. How many deals do you typically close, or how many sites do you usually have for sale per year or per month?
Right now, there's probably 10 to 12 listings on moneynomad.com/marketplace. This year, off the top of my head, closed about $150,000 in value, which
Okay, so yeah, it's not much.
it's not much, but when you think that, or when compare it to that price, the average price points between 20 and 80, which most of them probably being 30, that's 5 to 6, 7 deals. But this just started to get going this year with Empire Flippers. And as you know, in the brokerage space, it takes time to start getting
Yeah.
that buyer pool built up and things.
Yeah, I was in the brokerage space as well for a year and a half. I was the co-owner of Deal Flow Brokerage, and
Yeah.
so we were mostly dealing with bigger businesses probably from like mid six figures and into mid seven figures, but also
Mhm.
we weren't closing that many deals. It's quite competitive. It's quite difficult in that range as well.
And what I like about the price point that I'm in, just because someone is buying a $50,000 website, doesn't mean they don't have the ability to buy a $300,000 or $500,000 website. Lots of times they're just getting their feet wet. They learn about the online digital asset space. They want to get in on something, and then they have plans to scale it larger. Um, so I love serving that niche because typically those people are hungry and they're passionate.
Okay, and what would you say are your current for content sites? What are the current multiples on profit or revenue that you have your website listed at or selling at right now?
And of course it varies. I'd say 33 to 42x.
Are you seeing a drop in the last like 6 months or so?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had to talk to some sellers about doing some price reductions, which obviously brings the multiple down. But yeah, I've seen it slowing down a bit. This month though, it actually started to pick up again. Um, I don't know why. Maybe it's time of year or people are thinking maybe we're at the bottom with the economy. I don't know. But yes, I've definitely seen it slowing down.
Very good. And so as a broker, how time consuming is it? Like for an average listing, how many inquiries are there, would you say, or how many potential buyers are there before like it closes?
I try to be very, very specific on the listings that I take, the ones that I actually think that I can sell and that are a good buy for someone. So I don't waste anybody's time. I don't want to waste a buyer's time or a seller's time or even my own time brokering something that's not going to sell. So typically I'll do an email blast. And if it's a well-priced content website that has a couple years of history, a decent DR, I'll get probably 7 to 10 inquiries immediately as soon as the email blast goes out. And I would say if I'd like in 48 hours to like have an offer or two on paper.
Wow, that's pretty quick. So
Yeah,
that seems like a very good deal for sellers because your commission is 10%, which I think is lower than Motion Invest and some of the others, because I think most charge 15. I know also Mushpik does something similar. It's probably also 10%.
he does do something similar. I don't know his structure exactly. The only thing that I do not do that like Empire Flippers would do is I don't switch out the affiliate links.
Yeah,
So if you buy a website, it's your responsibility to.
So you don't handle the transfer process, right? You only do you do the escrow?
Yeah, I'll handle escrow. I will do the domain transfer,
Okay.
the actual hosting, all the content files, all of that. If the account is coming, or if the website's coming with like an affiliate account, I'll help that migration. But if someone's keeping their affiliate account, like say someone's keeping their Amazon Associates account, which everybody always does, I won't update the links to your associate links. You'll have to do that once you get control of the website. But that's it.
All right. That's pretty nice. That we have a few sites for sale now. I think I'll send you some details after the call to see if we can get them listed. Do you have do you require an exclusivity from sellers?
I do. I ask for 90 days. Typically, if a business, from what I've found, if a website or business isn't sold in 45 days, there's probably a problem either with the pricing or with the business itself. So right now the language is 90 days, but sometimes people, they come to me and say, hey, can we work on this? And I work with their current situation. Because I don't want to be holding up anybody's sale, right? Like my job is to get it sold.
Right.
One interesting like niche that I've become preview to by doing this is Amazon KDP. I don't, Kindle Direct Publishing, for people that don't know what that stands for. I think that is a great opportunity for someone that wants a digital asset to get involved with. I don't own a KDP business yet, but I want to. It seems extremely passive. And if you're already familiar with like Amazon ads from like FBA, their ad system is extremely similar with KDP. So I don't know, something I've been thinking a lot about recently.
That's interesting. I remember I've looked into that at some point. I've looked at a couple of businesses, but it seemed like a very different thing. So what I learned is that basically you write a bunch of books, you publish them on Amazon, and people buy them. But what happens is books often have a trajectory. They go up in popularity and then they drop. So to have consistent revenue, you have to keep producing good books, have to have good writers, have to be on top of trends. Yeah. And there is also a lot of variance in what works, what doesn't. Is that right? And the algorithms kind of keep changing, so you have to also adapt to that to keep your books ranking.
Yeah, and I've been looking for, and the businesses that sell the quickest are the ones that have, say, 40 books published. And over time, you'll see that one topic was the top earner, and then another topic, kind of like you said, like one fell out of favor, but another one, became favorable. So I think if you buy one of these that have enough titles published, you're always in good shape to have a top earner, in the queue, I would say.
So if you buy, let's say, a KDP business with 40 titles, would you need to also have a writer and keep producing new books? Or do you think you can just coast for half a year, and the revenue will not drop that much?
And this is theory. I haven't done it yet, but the ones I'm looking to buy, I was not going to hire a writer. I was just going to run with the books that it comes with and just try to really fine tune the advertising. Because like if you buy a KDP account that has very like evergreen books, the content in those books isn't going to go, it's not going to become outdated, right? Like if it's a cookbook or something, like that recipe is still going to be the same last year as it was next year. But if I can be better at running ads and be more efficient with my ad spend, I think that's a good a good avenue to take.
And for this kind of KDP businesses you are looking at, do the sales come primarily organic, or is it the ads you pay, you do ads on Amazon or externally?
Ideally, if I was buying one, I would probably want 90% of it to be organic, which would give me room to add advertising. Most of the KDP businesses that I've sold, which is like 4 of them, I would say 60% was organic and 40% was paid. Which I still think, that's a pretty good split. Lots of times you see businesses that are like 90% paid and 10% organic.
Yeah, and what's the multiple?
35-ish, 33, 35, 37.
Is that just on revenue, or do they include some expenses usually?
That's on profit.
So just after like the fees you pay to Amazon and the advertising, not including any kind of operational costs. I guess if you don't have writers, you don't need anything, right? You don't have any costs.
Correct. And you could also argue that if say there was $3,000 allocated for a new book, let's just use that as an example, the buyer gets the benefit of that. So you could argue that's an add back where it doesn't reduce like your profitability. So it's really your revenue less your ad spend less your Amazon fees, and then
that does actually sound like an interesting business. Now, just thinking about that now, that's if you have an account that has some solid books already on evergreen topics, you don't need to do a lot. You do some advertising, maybe you do an update, introduce a new version at some point, and that's about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So hey, maybe we'll have a follow-up in a year or something. I can tell you all about my KDP experience, but I've been trying to tell people that reach out to me. They're like, hey, what should I get involved with? And I say, hey, I haven't done this, but I think you should look into KDP. It seems very viable.
Okay, but then would your plan be to just buy it and hold it and not really grow it much? Sort of keep it as a passive income, not try to scale it.
Correct. So I want to buy it, increase, fine tune, tweak the ad spend, get that kind of running on semi-autopilot. Maybe I have to check in with that once a week, and then just let it run and not plan on publishing any more titles.
Right, very interesting. It's kind of cool. You do all kinds of really random different things.
I get bored easily. And so I like to dabble in all these things from Amazon, SEO, whatever it might be. I don't know. It keeps life interesting.
Do you also own some content sites? Do you buy content sites?
Yeah. Well, that's how I got my start in all this. Well, first it was Amazon FBA, and that was just a grind, and I learned a lot. I didn't really like it though. So I bought a content website for $49,000 from Empire Flippers in 2017. And that's what got my start in this. I had no SEO experience. I had no WordPress experience, no digital asset experience besides FBA when I bought my first content site. But my theory was, hey, if I spend 49 grand, I'm not going to let that go to waste. I'm going to be forced to learn these skills to keep the website flourishing. And so that's what I did.
And so how did that website do? Do you still have it? Is it doing well?
No, no, I don't have it any longer. I ended up selling it 4 months later. So I bought it for 49. I sold it for 75, and it was making and I got it to make $3,000 to $4,000 a month in profit during those like 3.5, 4 months. So walked out with a pretty decent return even after paying brokerage commissions again. But even more important was the lessons that I learned. I now knew how to use WordPress. I now knew the basics of SEO. I just had a lot of these aha moments when I could look in the back end of one of these websites and it all started to make sense.
All right. That's very nice. That's quite impressive. So the first ever website that you acquired with no SEO experience, and then you just resold it after 4 months for a profit. I love those, by the way. I had quite a few similar deals. the one that we published, the public case study, was a website called photo20beginner.com. I think also I bought it like 2017, 2018, around that, and then sold it about 4 or 5 months later. Bought it for about like $50,000 and sold for $165,000. So that one went really well, but it
Congratulations.
I found at the time, it's interesting, at the time I found this is just the ideal time frame to keep a website, like less than 6 months, because that's enough. You just improve all the ads, all the monetization, and do like some small tweaks, and that's it. You don't want to keep it too long to risk a Google update. So
No, most definitely. And I mean, and that's exactly how I did it with that website. Was I really only touched the monetization, because like those things can have an overnight effect. I created some new articles and did some SEO, but there wasn't enough time really to start seeing the benefits of that. Towards the end, right before it sold, you could start seeing some of the stuff I published was starting to rank. But as you know, the SEO stuff takes much longer than optimizing ads and banners and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love those opportunities. I've done so many of them in the past 2 decades or so, but the last few years it's been quite rare. Like back in 2010, 2015 or so, like around those periods, there were so many opportunities. People did not know anything about monetization. Like literally there would be websites that people put a small Google ad block at the bottom of the page. and all I did, I was just like take that block and put it at the top, and the revenue is just triple or quadruple, and that's it. Now that's just never happens anymore. Now these opportunities are all gone.
Actually, so in 2021, I bought a C#, like a programming language in C#, a C# content website, and it was all about like different structures and things for C#. And the site got pretty good traffic. And I bought it for $2,000 or so, maybe $1,800. All I did was add Google Ads to it, and it started to make $550 a month. I sold it for $22,000 after 6 months.
All right, very good. Yeah, very nice.
And I use Ahrefs a lot to find, but like you said, it's gotten much harder to find some of these like hidden gems. But all of them have come from Ahrefs. That's how I found Money Nomad. That's how I found that. I've had other people hire me to help them find off-market sites. It's all Ahrefs stuff.
Yeah. And where do you look for off-market sites? Do you just Google Outreach, something like that?
So I'll go into Ahrefs. I'll use the Content Explorer, and typically I know like what sort of niche or genre I want to be looking for. So like Money Nomad, I knew I wanted to be like personal finance. And then you could also filter out by like domain rating. And I knew I couldn't afford like a domain rating of like 80 or like a Financial Samurai or something like that. So I just filtered that down, but I knew I wanted at least a 20. So then you had like a range that I thought I could afford and that I'd want. And then you can search for like when the last time a piece of content was published. And so I looked for a site that hadn't had anything published for like 8 to 12 months. So I knew it was stale, but not like crazy stale, where maybe the owner completely forgot about it or something like that, but just old enough where they probably didn't care that much. And I started to send cold emails.
And how many emails did you have to send to find the right deal?
I think on Money Nomad, I sent 12 to 15, had 3 responses, maybe 4, and then I ended up buying, Money Nomad. I was talking to Richard Patty about this. He's you might know his name in the online space.
Yeah.
He does that cold outreach too, and he's had when I told him my conversion rate, he thought it was actually quite low. It sounded like he's actually done very, very well doing something similar and had even better response rate.
I think that's a pretty good response. By the way, we had Richard on our podcast as well before. I think that's a pretty good response, right? We are doing an outreach on a bigger scale, so we are sending out probably thousands of email. I'm sorry upfront for all the spam, okay. but we are very targeted. So we only like target sites that I know a range of buying that would cost somewhere in like mid six figures more or less, and like an hour different topics and niches. So we don't really go for smaller sites. But it's really interesting to know that there is these opportunities. I think that's something that can be perfect for beginners. So often I have people asking me like, what's the best way to find a good website? How do I get started and so on? And I think this is like probably one of the perfect ways. Just figure out a niche you like and then contact some websites and see if you can score a good deal.
Thing was, I was hungry. Like I really wanted a website. I wanted that, whatever people, financial freedom or whatever you want to call it, passive income.
Yeah.
Well, I've realized there's really no such thing as passive income. Like these websites, they require work. Everything really requires work. I've yet to find true passive income. So if you have, please tell me. But I was just hungry. And so I had to figure out a way to find something. And that's when I started to use Href. So if you're hungry enough, I feel like you'll find a way to find what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you talk about that. People often refer to content websites as passive income, but it's nothing like that. You have to maintain it. You have to keep track of it. You have to add content. I've tried a lot of different things. I've done a bunch of real estate in 3 countries. Actually, I've done some things with stocks. Real estate is not that passive. Not passive at all, probably. It was some of my properties were passive because there was an agent who was just handling everything. The stocks, I wasn't really picking stocks. I'm learning to do that now, actually, but just setting up, a traditional free fund portfolio. But that was as passive as it gets, I guess. Like investing in indexes and kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to keep that for 30 years.
Yeah.
In interactive brokers, that's probably as passive as it gets.
And see, like I also do some real estate. I have 2 rentals, and that's passive, and the appreciation is passive, but appreciation doesn't go into your bank account every month, right? Same with like stock gains, that doesn't go into your bank account only if you sell. So finding something that actually deposits into your checking account or business account every month that's passive, it's hard to find, and I'm okay with it though. Like I like to work. I'd get bored if I think something just directly went in every month with no input from me.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, as entrepreneurs, as like people who get into all these different online businesses, we often have a tendency to try to find something that's the opposite of this volatility that you get in online businesses. So I think it's quite common for entrepreneurs to look for something that's just passive and very long term, very safe, very secure, like gold in a safe, gold bars or something.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And one thing that I actually found helpful both in the SEO space specifically and also like in digital assets is I kind of tuned out other opportunities, right? As you know, in the online space, there's so many different routes you can go: drop shipping, FBA, content, SaaS, lead gen. All I did was I picked one, I found that it worked, and I focused in on that. Same with my SEO, like my SEO angles that I take. There's really only 3 or 4. There's hundreds you could go after, but I really just honed down to like 3 or 4 that I know that I can do really, really well on. And then my time isn't spread too thin. I'm able to I guess, hone in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's that's perfect. That's what I found to be most effective as well. Just have focus, be laser focused on a couple things only, and know that they work. Make a good choice. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's so easy though to get distracted by like that shiny object. I don't know, shiny object theory or whatever people talk about, but it's totally real. But I think as entrepreneurs, we have to put that aside and focus on what we know and seen works.
Yeah, it's important to have a trade-off between being focused and working on one thing, but also kind of switching. You don't want to stay in the same thing for 15 years unless it's like your main company that keeps growing, but like the same industry, the same niche, because there's always these trends that go up and down, and you want to find it there, it's growing, and then you shift and you go to something different. So that's the ideal way, I think, to look at things as well. Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, like back in 2007, back in 2006, I was doing AdSense sites, and I had 3,000 AdSense sites, like more or less fully automated system, just like setting up domains, and I built all this stuff, and I had all these sites, and it was very easy to rank everything at that time. And then the next year, Google banned all the entire network, even closed some of my AdSense accounts. And so I was like, okay, that's the end of that. So then I got into domain names. I also had a few like good websites at the time as well, white hat sort of. But then I got into domains. Domain names were taking off in 2007. It was like things were growing like crazy. The prices were going up all the time. And then in 2009 also the prices dropped. So I was like, okay, that's the more or less the end of that. So trends always go up, down. But the one thing that stayed is just for me the ability to recognize the good deal, recognize the opportunities, and also just the sense of buying and selling things. Right. It's like there is always that aspect of you gotta find the right industry, the right niche, the right timing, and also like deals, basically buy something, see what you can do and sell it, something like that.
I think you need to train yourself to like look for opportunities. And that's what I've done over the years is like, and I'm sure you have as well. You could look at either a domain name or one of these sites and see opportunities right off the bat to even consider if you should be buying it or not. And probably typically you're like, nope, I'm going to cross off the list. And I think people should train themselves to look for opportunities, even when they're on a website even if you're on the Wirecutter, right? And you're reading a vacuum review, put yourself in, if you own this website, what could you do better? What can you learn from it? And you can take these pieces and apply it to your own sites. But going back to your time in both that network of ad sites and also the domains, you stayed in the same vertical. It's not like when your ad sites got banned, you switched over to like drop shipping, right? You stayed in that website vertical, which I think was really important because you already had like a competitive advantage there. You already knew that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's very true. So I kind of kept accumulating the experience, the expertise, the network, the connections, the capital, and everything. And so that's what happened. Like gradually, I kept buying bigger and bigger websites as well. So in parallel with all that, I was occasionally buying some sites, some small sites at first, $100, a few $100, couple $1,000 here and there, and that eventually that was the main thing. After a short while, and then I started buying bigger and bigger sites and selling and flipping, and I think that's just a big skill to have in general, that sense of deal making. And living here in Chiang Mai, so a couple of years ago I had this idea, maybe I should open a cafe. I always wanted to have a restaurant or a cafe of my own.
Cool.
So I started looking into that, and I can like quickly pinpoint that, okay, this is what works. You get the location, you can like, these are the things that need to work, that you need, and so on. And I was in that process for a bit. I'm pretty sure that I could, figure out the space enough to set up a business that would be much better than all the rest, because like people around here, they don't have really kind of a business sense. People just open a cafe. It's like, I want to make some cupcakes, whatever, let's see how that goes. But then you come with that entrepreneurial mindset, and you research the competition. You just know what's going to work. But after looking more into it, I just realized it's ridiculous. The profit margins are low. The amount of work is so high. There is not that much profit. I was like, offline businesses are just terrible.
There's relative to a brick and mortar business, especially a restaurant, our overhead is so low. When I say ours, the people that are involved in online businesses, especially content websites and things like that, it's very low overhead, especially if you can do like some of the SEO stuff yourself. It's probably just writers, hosting it's so nominal. I would like to own, if money was no object, I would like to own like an Italian restaurant or something like that. And maybe where it's like not for profit. I think it'd be fun to be in the restaurant space if there was no pressure to make a profit.
Would it be a proper Italian restaurant? Then the chef has this big mustache and everyone there's Everyone
I
wears
hope
these
so.
huge Italian hats, white hats,
Yeah, exactly.
and speaks in an
Just
Italian accent.
good, affordable Italian food. That's not for profit. That's the goal one day. So maybe
And
when I'm
and if
50
and
or
if
something.
someone says that the pizza wasn't hot enough, the chef comes out with a big knife and it's like, "That's it. We're going to fight for life now."
Yeah, picks them up, throws them out of the
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah,
Yeah,
basically, yeah. It's
exactly.
like you have insulted my entire family for 10 generations. You will
There
pay
you
for it.
go.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that'd be a fun one. Yeah, for me, I would probably want like a juice bar. I like juice. I like juice and fruits. Just
okay.
the one that I saw this place once. It was an online kind of shop, but I think they have an offline too somewhere here in town. And you can just have like hundreds of different fruits. I didn't even know some of these fruits existed, and you can just order them and they deliver it or they make juice out of it. I thought like, wow, that's amazing. Like some kind of weird looking Chinese apple or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's
I
cool.
I I love some good fresh fruit. So if you end up opening it one day, let me know. I'll patronize it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for now I have so I have some land here and I built a guest house. And
Hmm.
sometimes like I have guests coming in and I have my maid cook some food and make some juice. And so a few people suggested maybe you just open a cafe, open a restaurant. But
Yeah.
I don't think so, but who knows? Maybe in the
Well,
future.
and here's the problem of like us entrepreneurs, our minds are always like, hey, we should do that. But then again, you have the discipline to say no and put it on the back burner and to focus on more viable, lucrative opportunities now.
Yeah.
Um, and I think a lot of people can't do that, and they would chase after that, burn up a bunch of money and time. Okay, that didn't work. Chase after something, burn up money and time, and they just get caught in this cycle, and they never really progress.
Yeah, and I'm a slow learner, at least I was. Like it took me maybe 3, 5 years to notice, oh, like this buying and selling websites, that's what brings me all the profits. And I was doing so many different things. Like I had some adult websites, I had some sort of online pharmacy websites at some point, like back in the like mid 2000s,
Yeah.
like late 2000s, and I was like I had all these different ideas. Like I built a search engine at some point.
Oh,
I had all
cool.
these different like SaaS businesses. I had a couple of forums and communities. I was doing like some sort of e-commerce stuff. And I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a good idea. Let's do that. And then spend some time on that and then, never check it again.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this period that I tried everything. And I think
Hmm.
that's more or less how it works. You have to really try quite a few different things, but then also have that
Yeah.
reflective attitude to see did it work, did it not work, and then just
Yeah.
gradually, and so now like I have a pretty good idea whether something is going to work or not, for me at least, knowing my expertise and skills. And I think that takes some time to develop as an entrepreneur.
I completely agree with everything you said. Yeah, I had to go through trial and error on different business models and stuff like that, most definitely. But you learn along the way. Okay, you're like, hey, that didn't work. Cool. Cross that off the list. Let's try this. Hey, that actually started to work. Awesome. And so I completely agree on all that. Um, can I just share a couple interesting SEO things
Sure.
that your audience might find helpful?
Yeah, let's get a bit more into SEO actually. So you've been doing some
Um,
testing. Tell us about it.
yeah, I've been doing some testing. Um, and my plan is to roll it out on a larger scale next year. But so I ran two different tests, specifically in like the real estate, the car, and the boat industries, which are pretty competitive industries when it comes to like the keyword difficulty and things. Basically, I ran two tests. One was, can I start a website from ground zero, a domain rating of 0, and rank for a lucrative keyword phrase? If I name the website that lucrative phrase, like call it, like the Ford F-150, say it was like F150forsale.com, and it was a website dedicated to F-150s. That's not the website, but that's an example. Could that outrank, say, Car Gurus, cars.com and things for F-150s for sale in the United States? That was my question. And I proved that to be the case. So I created a very, very tailored car website and did some link building to it. The domain rating was probably 1.5 when I was done with it, but I was ranking on the first page in like position 5. Above some of these large juggernaut websites of domain ratings like 80 and 90. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And my theory was because the website was just very well focused on that keyword phrase, Google liked it better than something else that was ranking, apparently. So I noted that. And then my other theory was, okay, now what if I do the same thing again? This time it was on the boat space. It was a brand of boat and then forsale.com. And this time I did a 301 redirect on an expired domain. And it was just it was a straight 301 redirect. I bought the domain. I bought it on Otis, which is an age domain website. Literally just 301 redirected it to that for sale domain. Didn't do any link building, put up 20 different pages of content, some listings, things like that, and saw if it would rank, and it did. It took about 3 to 4 months, but it started to outrank some of the big boat websites out there.
Was it getting good traffic?
It was, yeah. I mean, and again, boat leads are so lucrative that you don't need hundreds of thousands of page views. It was getting a couple thousand users a month, but for that brand of boat, that's all I needed.
So that's interesting because the trend in Google seems to be that high authority sites get all the traffic. But what you're saying is if you just have this really topical, narrow niche website,
yeah,
then you can rank well with low authority, with no authority and not many links.
That's exactly what I found. And people are always like, oh, those super niche sites are dead. I'm like, hey, well, let me try it. Like, it doesn't really cost anything. Some time to put up ads or classifieds and articles and some link building. But other than that, let's try it. And the results were astonishing. So, the next thing I'd like to do is maybe build up like 6 of these all in like, say, the car space or the boat space. And then maybe 301 redirect all those to a main site where each one of those redirects is its own category on that website.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the play is. Or you just have like 6 individual websites. But I feel like that's not a good use of time.
Yeah, it's fun to play, but where do you get it to like a space where it can be really profitable?
Yeah. So
I guess you could just go for like really valuable topics, really valuable leads.
Yeah. So I think the key takeaways there is 1, a very, very niche site done correctly can outrank a juggernaut website. And 2, people talk that you can't do like straight 301 redirects, all that sort of stuff. I think you can. I think you have to do it sparingly and well thought out. But I think you most definitely can do a straight 301 redirect.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So we are doing a little test now as well. We've been publishing it a case study. So we bought an expired domain, we built a website, and we are doing a case study. So it's been like 5 months or so, 4 or 5 months, and it's got up to close to $300 per month, I think, to $300 per month in revenue now.
Cool.
And doing some decent traffic. So I think there is certainly these things work. There is a lot of this little shortcuts in SEO that work. And
it's fun to kind of find these little nuances. So another one I'm working on is I bought a 36 DR expired website. I rebuilt it. It's now ranking. Google picks up the keywords. And then my plan is to take that and 301 redirect it to a money site. Rather than doing a straight 301 redirect, rebuild the old website. Now it's ranking and then redirect that entire site. We'll see how that works. I haven't done the redirect yet.
Yeah, the one thing I personally wanted to experiment with is AI content. Have you looked into that?
Sort of. I'm scared to because of all the stuff that says, Google, they don't like it. But then there was that chat. What is it? Chat GPT. Have you seen that?
No.
The new AI thing that just dropped. Here, let me
OpenAI. Yeah.
chat GPT. Um, and their tagline's optimizing language models for dialogue. And it's OpenAI.
Yeah.
This looks like it's going to be game changing.
Yeah, I've spoken to, we have this private mastermind, and we've been talking to a few colleagues who are doing this now, and they say that OpenAI is pretty good. Like they've been doing some content through it and just putting it on some expired domains or even new domains.
Yeah,
It seems to run
it's
quite
working.
well. But my challenge with that is it, like all these experiments, it all involves some work, some preparation. You have to get domains, you have to set it all up, and I don't want to do it myself. and when we would need to take some people from our team to redirect them to this new project, so then they won't have enough time to do some of the other tasks. So it's all a bit complicated for me. But I'd love to try those things.
And it's hard to take your time away from money-making ventures to try some of these experiments. But you know what? Maybe I will try, because I have a couple expired domains that are just sitting in my my hosting account. Maybe I will take one of those and throw some AI content up on it.
Yeah, and it's if I recall, the cost would be like somewhere in like less than $0.50 per article.
Yeah.
So it's it's pretty good.
But the Chat GPT is like
I actually looked into that myself. I looked into a few of the websites. I looked at the keys to not just do it is to set up a few different content sources. Like you do a website that has maybe some big database of some data, and you do like a special template for it to display it, and then you add some of that AI content and a few other things on top. So then it works. If you just slap it the 100 articles of AI content on a new domain or an expired domain, that might not work, or maybe it will work and then just get banned. So I think that's the key. And yeah, I've seen people that get websites to thousands of dollars per month just from the AI content pretty quickly. So that works.
I think that's going to open up so many more opportunities to people are going to have I don't know. I think it's very, very interesting. So if you haven't heard of that, I would check it out. I think it's going to open up money-making opportunities for a lot of people in good ways.
Yeah. I like that you do these tests, because I have maybe like a dozen things I'd like to test, but there is never enough time. And I just kind of discard them because, okay, this is not gonna, my way now is pretty much like, this is gonna make me $1 million potentially in the next like couple of years or so. Not worth it. Not worth the effort.
And it's unfortunate because I'm kind of the same way. It's like, hey, can I have a big exit in this? Probably not. Or can this, be a changing amount of money every month? The answer is no. It's like, it's hard to pursue it. But these are the things that also got us to where we were in the first place, like trying these ideas. Had we never tried stuff in the first place, we wouldn't have gone here, right? So I think you got to go back to your roots sometimes.
I think it's also the benefit of having a bigger company, a bigger team, where you can just say, hey guys, this stuff, go do it, and then check back and put someone in charge, project manager. So we are maybe halfway there. Like we don't have enough like resources to like redirect people quickly to doing different things. But I think that'd be pretty cool, because that's fun.
I would love to have a team in-house, or someone even local within driving distance, where you could have an in-house programmer, an in-house Python guy, all these, an SEO person. You could just like delegate these different tasks. Things would get done just so much faster if that was possible.
All right, so here it is for our listeners. Zach is looking for an in-house Python guy. Hopefully without a snake.
If you live in San Diego and want to work on some crazy website stuff, let me know, and maybe we can do something together.
I think there's quite a few programmers in San Diego, and many of them know Python, so you can put out an ad.
It'd be just cool to have like all these different skill sets, because you could crank out stuff so fast. So
and I'm looking for more or less the same, but in Chiang Mai.
Are you?
Yeah, well, now I am. Now it's going to be public.
Hey, I do have a great Python guy in Eastern Europe. If you do need a Python guy, I can share with you after, but I do have a great guy over
I
there.
actually have a few guys, but it's more like you sort of need a team, I think, for this sort of projects, because you can have one guy would have the technical expertise, and then you need someone who knows enough SEO to put it all together, and someone who can manage things. So
Yeah.
it's rare that you would have, because if you have one person who can do everything, they will just go and do it, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, if we have a few more minutes, can I throw out
Yeah, sure.
can we talk a little bit of e-commerce TikTok stuff?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Well, I know this isn't like, e-commerce and TikTok isn't like the bread and butter of your audience, and it's not really the bread and butter of what I do, but I had a friend of mine who started an e-commerce business. It's a personalization business where you if you were the buyer or the customer, you send in a photo of yourself or your family, and then it gets designed into this certain type of artwork. Um, and I came on board, so now I own a piece of the business as well.
So what type of artwork is it? Is it like you have a photo and then it made into like a cartoon, something like that?
Yes, very similar, and
Okay.
it's you just turned into like that character that
Or
you wanted to become.
like a Da Vinci painting or Picasso
Exactly.
painting. Yeah, okay.
Exactly, and that's like called personalization.
That's
It's a
fun.
huge thing. Or you see like ads of like it's like your dog on a blanket, right? And it's someone holding up the photo of their dog on a blanket or something like that. And those are all the rage with like Gen
Oh,
Z
yeah.
and millennials and things. Um, so the business has done about $1.3 million in sales over its lifetime, and it started in October of 2020. Um, this year it will do almost 400,000. All that to say is it is only advertised on TikTok. It's not Facebook. It's not YouTube. None of that. It is only TikTok, and specifically TikTok Spark ads. So if you have a business out there and and your product that you sell is very like visually pleasing, I would say consider getting on TikTok and making some video content of it, and then you can use Spark ads to promote those videos. Um, and we get anywhere, and our cost per click on TikTok is 20 to 80 cents cost per click.
That sounds pretty good. So I don't know much about TikTok. I've tried it like once or twice and just, yeah, that's not for me. And
Yeah.
everything is too fast and too short and too crazy.
Yep.
So is that about right? And what is TikTok good for? Who are the main audience? Is it mostly kids? Is it all over?
You know, it's so interesting because like I know of a lot of like mid 30-year-olds that are on TikTok, but they don't post. They're just scrolling.
Yeah.
I would say a majority of the posts are coming from like Gen Z and like young millennials, but there's a lot of like older, when I say older, mid 30s that are on there, but they're like quietly on there. Um, and again, if you have a product that is somewhat hip, like somewhat trendy and visually appealing, I think it would do great on TikTok.
So probably something that's in the lower price range as well, right?
I mean, our average order value is about $100.
Okay, that's good. So all your sales come from TikTok, and it's all paid TikTok promotions, right?
Correct. I mean, yeah, then they get taken to Shopify, and that's what the website runs on.
And what kind of margin do you get? Profit margin?
Uh, 29 to 33%.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So it's pretty nice, and it's probably not difficult. Like you just the whole product, as I understand, it's probably not complex, right? You some custom software or
We actually have artists that do it themselves, so there's
okay.
labor involved. The team's pretty big, especially during the holidays and stuff. So you got to manage artists, make sure orders are done on time and all that. So there's a lot of management that goes into it. So that's probably the biggest The
And so
biggest piece is
you bought the business, or you bought like an ownership stake in it, right?
correct. Yes.
And what made you initially interested in that? Why were you? It's completely different from all the other things you do, as I understand.
So he actually came to me, and he wanted. I really don't have any interest in TikTok or even being in the e-commerce space, but he said, "Hey, would you come and just kind of help on the business side of things?" He's like, "You're good at business. You understand profit margin and controlling expenses and things like that." He's like, "I need help there." He's like, "I'll keep doing the TikTok stuff, but can you just help me on the website side of things and the business side of things?" So it actually works out pretty well because I can kind of stay in my vertical of online business and not stray into the unknown of like e-commerce, but that's his
Yeah.
strong suit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it reminds me, we had Nathan Ginsburg on the podcast. Maybe you know him, and he was telling me about how he does something very similar. He just like partners with people. He buys into a small stake in their company, in their business, and then just comes in and helps them set things up properly, and then so the business can grow. And I thought that's a pretty cool way for an experienced entrepreneur who has some capital to scale things up without really putting in too much time. So it's a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah, it's an interesting model. And it wasn't even something I was like looking to get into. He just came to me and said, "Hey, you want to do it?" And I was like, you know what? This actually kind of makes sense. And then our plan is another reason why he brought me in was I've sold a couple of online businesses. Obviously, I broker them. We want to sell in Q3 of next year. Maybe put it on the market late Q2. It'll sell in Q3 so that the buyer gets the Q4 run next year. Which will be lucrative for the buyer. So anyways, that's the plan.
Will you put it on Empire Flippers, or how do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, they're interesting. So what would you say are some really good opportunities now for like beginners, first time sort of buyers with some budget or without? Yeah, what do you think is best right now to look into?
I think hands down, buying a digital asset that's already up and running and that's making money is your best is the best route you can go, is your best opportunity. It will give you momentum. It gives you encouragement when you see money coming in right away, and it gives you, a base to build off of. So if you don't have a lot of money right now, I would say save up until you can buy something that's already making money. And if you got 20 to 100,000, say find whether it's a KDP business, a content website, whatever it is, buy something that's already up and running and then try to scale it.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's for beginners. But what do you think is the best opportunity right now for people like us who have the experience, have the capital, just don't have a lot of time, but like wanna get into something that can be really big?
Ooh, that's a good one, because I don't really have a good answer, because I'm kind of looking for that myself. Because the problem is you get in this space or this void where it doesn't make sense for us to go after these $100,000 websites because they don't make enough money to really move the needle. But then you go to like a big website and you either need a lot of cash or you now need a team behind you. I mean, I like real estate if we're talking outside of the digital asset space. I like real estate. I like cars. I think, in proper car investments can be really lucrative.
What do you mean a car investment? Like buying, selling cars? Or what is it?
Like, yeah, I'm into supercars, like specifically like older supercars. You buy some of those if you follow the market there and buy some of those. I think those have great returns. That a lot of people can't get into if you don't have the capital. But I think if you are experienced, have cash, and you want to grow it, maybe buying $150,000 to $200,000 like content website would be your best opportunity. Because you start getting to that price point, there's not a lot of buyers that have cash, and the big guys don't want to buy a website that small, right? So if you buy a $200,000 website and then grow it to become like 600, well, then you can sell that to like a fund, right?
Yeah.
There's this void in like in valuations where it's too small for institutional money, but too big for private money.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. That's exactly what we do. We buy sites for like mid six figures and then grow them and aim to resell them for like low seven figures, so a little bit higher. Because yeah, the competitors at that space, there is not that many individual buyers that have that sort of capacity to go and put 300, 400,000 for a deal. So
Yeah.
it's mostly groups, or it's like small funds and so on. Yeah, small
But the
space.
key is just be able to scale it into that next buyer, in the next buyer pool, right? Like if you can only scale it and increase the value by 20 grand, you're going to be kind of stuck when you try to get out of it.
All right, but that still puts a bit of a limit on what you can do if you don't have a team behind you, right? What would you do if you want to get to, let's say you want to make $10 million, because this is all, maybe it would get you $500,000, couple 100,000, something like that. Maybe you get to $1 million. But say you wanted to make 10 million, what would you do? Could you do it without having a bigger team?
No, I think you need a bigger team. I think. What do you think?
Well, I know quite a few domainers that are way above that in terms of like net worth, and they don't have teams.
They don't.
So that's domaining is a space. Like I know people that have
like
hundreds of thousands of domains.
Was your 10 million net worth or like revenue from the site?
No, I mean like net worth, like like a profit sort of thing, not just revenue. 10 million. Yeah, I know. I have a friend that's 10 million revenue, but he makes like 200,000 a year in profit.
Yeah.
So that's not as interesting.
No, I would think that if you're doing 10 million in like profit, I think you would need a team. But it also depends on what it is. If it's e-commerce, most definitely. If it's a content site or like an advertising site where it's a content site, but it's like all ad revenue, you might not need a team.
You also need capital potentially. Yeah, like you might need some extra capital investors. Have you done anything with investors?
I have not. I don't want to take investor money. I've had it offered. I don't want to have to answer to anybody.
Yeah, I get that. I was like that for a long time. And then what happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I had a couple of deals lined up for a couple $100,000. And but my money was already tied up in a few other deals.
Yeah.
And there was a website I could buy for 200,000, and I knew I could just flip it quickly for $500,000. And I just couldn't arrange the funds quickly because I talked to a few friends and it was just not enough time, not enough people, and there were a couple of those. It was really disappointing. So then I started to think, okay, maybe it's time to really start looking into getting some capital. And I realized that there is so much value in having capital available, because if you have cash, like cash is the king. Especially for someone like us that always is aware of many different good opportunities, having cash is super valuable.
And I do think part of that stems from like I'm 28, so I have a younger mindset on some of this stuff.
All right.
As I get older, I think I'll be more open to taking outside capital. I think it comes with age and time, though.
Well, I feel like a grandfather now. I'm about 10 years older. I'm 37 now.
Hey, 40 is like the new 30, I feel like. So not at all.
That's true. But yeah, for me, what I think is, you probably, the fastest way is probably with capital, with investors. You raise some capital, you buy some bigger businesses, you grow them a little bit, you resell, but you get some loans, but then you have all this scale that comes from capital. There is this thing I've seen somewhere, I don't remember where it comes from, but like in terms of how leverage ranks up. So the best leverage to have is like software sales, right? So like Facebook or whatever. So if you have that, you can scale very easily with very limited extra costs, right? because software
Yep.
scales very well. And then the next best scale is capital, because capital scales well. You
Yeah.
can raise more and more capital, assuming that you have an opportunity. And then the next best scale is people.
Mhm.
People are, difficult.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. And
I think if someone came to me and said, "Hey, I want to sell something for north of $10 million, what would it be?" I think it'd be like a SaaS or software.
yeah,
Man, if you could write a piece of software, I'm still trying to come up with what it might be, where you can just license it, or anything, or I should say anything you can license. Maybe it's not software, maybe it is, but anything that's licensable, where the cost to add another licensee is minimal, you just print money all day long.
yeah. We had three SaaS businesses. We have maybe three like bigger SaaS businesses in six figures, and a few smaller ones as well. And it's actually hard to grow. Like I thought exactly like you are saying, it's SaaS, it's easy to scale, but it's not so easy to grow because the paid ads, it doesn't always end up profitable depending on what the product is and so on, right? And then there is competition, and the organic traffic, it's quite competitive, so you only get to some point. So
Did you add affiliates?
we did have affiliate too, but that didn't seem to work very well. We didn't actually put much effort into that, so it could have been a thing as well. But the point is, I guess it's all about the fit of niche and product and all that.
Yeah. I haven't ventured into it, but one day I will. It's just something that keeps me up at night.
All right, very cool. So what's next for you? You've done quite well. You've been in business now for like 5 years, more or less.
Yeah.
What's next for the next 5 years?
Well, my goal is to be retired by like 35. That's what I would really like. And when I say retired, meaning I don't have to work anymore, just because I only do it because I want to. And I think it'll be yacht brokering, money nomad, and then I do see myself getting more into the e-commerce space here in the near future, especially once we sell that other e-commerce business I was talking about. I think that's going to have a good. My goal is to build an e-commerce business strictly with the intent of selling it in 5 years.
All right. So what does retirement in San Diego look like? How much money do you need? Like 5 million, $10 million, $2 million?
Probably 10.
10? Wow, that's expensive.
San Diego is very expensive. I think it's one of the most expensive places in the United States, besides like San Francisco, New York.
Yeah.
And obviously, again, I'm young at 35. You still have a long time left to live. But my goal would be 10 million. Then you can invest a lot of that. So obviously that grows. Have some real estate investments that grow. So, anyways, that's the goal.
All right. Let me make a note to follow up. So 7 years from now, we'll do another episode.
Please do. And see, I like setting goals that are big goals, but not like these extreme, like, I want to be a billionaire or something like that. Like, I don't care, but I like to set goals that I can actually rationally achieve.
Yeah, because it has to be something that you actually believe, right? It has to be something that you actually feel that, it's quite doable. Yeah, that's right. All right, very cool. So let's wrap it up. Anything else you wanted to add that I didn't ask you about?
No, we covered a lot.
Anything else cool that you are doing that it's fun?
I do tournament fishing. Here's a quick little thing. Every year, about 200 boats all go to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and we all fish for a black or blue marlin. There's 3 days in October, and we fish for, last year was $3 million a day, so a total of $10 million. And basically, the biggest fish of each day can win upwards of $3 million a day. So we do that every year, and that's really fun. It's high stakes gambling, but also hardcore fishing mixed together. If it's called the Bisbee's Black and Blue. So if anyone's interested, they could Google it.
Did you win any of the previous events?
Yeah, we've actually took a first, a second, and a fifth, and just won just shy of $4 million
Was it a
over those
big
three
team?
podiums. What was that?
Oh, do you need a big team to compete there? How many people?
We usually have a team of 6.
Okay.
Because each guy has their own roles and there's a lot of moving parts to it. But it's fun. It's high stress, but it's also really rewarding if you do catch a fish. So
Right. Thanks, Zach. That was really great. I really enjoyed the chat. I learned a bunch of new things, learned about yachts and all sorts of other stuff. So that's really cool. One of my favorite episodes. Thanks for being here. And how can people find out more about you? Where can they find you online?
well, check out moneynomad.com. If you want to get to the marketplace, just do /marketplace. And if you have any questions on anything online related or boat or whatever it might be, people can email me, Zach, ZACH, at moneynomad.com.
All right. Thank you.
Domain Magnet is a leader in buying and selling online businesses with a proven track record of expertise gained from over 300 deals since 2004. To learn more about how we can help you acquire or exit a profitable online business today, head over to domainmagnet.com for more details.